Two people who are not in the gospel drama this morning I would like to interview. One would be Peter's wife, and the other one would be James and John's mother. Started out like an ordinary day, didn't it? Maybe just like today started out for you. I guess we'll go fishing, let's go mend our nets, Dad needs us to help him in the boat, an ordinary day. And suddenly something happens and that ordinary day is not ordinary anymore. Their poor husband/children were captured by a cult. Did you not know that you were members of a cult? You believe in someone who rose from the dead, and you eat bodies and drink blood. I would say that makes you a cult. My Jewish mother moved from the Bronx to Miami along with about 1 million others. And she told me one day she attended a program at a community center. And the program was on children captured by cults. And she said to me, "Paul, you would not believe it, but when the seminar leader asked for a show of hands of how many people had a kid in a cult, a whole bunch of hands went up." I said, "Mom, did your hand go up?" And she said, "It most certainly did." What is it about this strange story we hear this morning about the call of the disciples? I heard a story this morning about somebody falling off a roof and getting a call from God in the context of that. I suppose God can call anybody, anywhere, in any setting. But the story I want to tell you is about our friend Don Beaner. Don Beaner was friends with Judy and me when we lived in Boulder, Colorado, just a couple of months before we got married. He was a silversmith, and one of his gifts to us on the occasion of our wedding was to make beautiful wedding rings for us. I've lost mine. That's a whole other sermon. Yeah. So anyhow, Don one day left a note for Judy and me. We were living in a rooming house up on the hill in Boulder, and he left a note on the blackboard: "If you ever do anything in your life, come to Wall Street." Now, Wall Street is a little town in the mountains above Boulder, has a population of about 12, and it's not a very interesting place. But we said, look, we trust Don, he's our friend, something's going on in Wall Street, let's go see what it is. What it was a guru from India who had come to visit, and he was giving away enlightenment for free. Free. He said, you would have to meditate for decades in order to get what I'm going to give you in an instant. So I said, I'll try anything once, let's go. And went up to Wall Street and waited for the guru to show up. Well, he was 12 years old. And when he got out of the limousine, a limousine in Wall Street, Colorado, he got out of the limousine and he was wearing a Roy Rogers costume. He had the buckskin, he had the fringes and he was wearing a cowboy hat, and he had 2 plastic 6-shooters. And people went into him one-on-one for an interview that lasted about 15 or 20 minutes. Every single person who came out said, I don't know where he got that stuff, but when he opened his mouth, he had a wisdom that only somebody centuries old could have. I'm ready for it. However, there were a lot of people there, and I waited in line forever, and I was never going to get in to see him that day. I finally went back home and said to Judy, well, it'll have to wait for another day. She said, good, I'm not looking for a new religion. I don't know about you. This was before I'd become a Christian. Anyhow, Don Beaner became this kid's disciple. He sold everything that he had. He cashed in his family inheritance. He turned it all over to an ashram in New Mexico. He moved down there with this guru and his community, and we never heard from him again. He was gone. Follow me and I'll make you fish for people. Yeah? What is that going to involve? It's going to be a little more than meets the surface here. What would it take for us to get a call like that and answer with such blind obedience as Don had for that guru, or as Peter and Andrew and James and John had for Jesus this day? Do you have anybody in your life that you would follow with absolute blind obedience? Right off a cliff if she told you to? Probably not. But I do. I do. And I spent time with her this morning when I was driving here. In 100 yards, turn right. Yes, ma'am. No arguing with the nav system. No. So that's a little contemporary example of what Jesus was asking of these people. Never mind what you know about life. Never mind what you thought you were going to do today. Never mind about your profession. Never mind about your father, which is a violation of one of the 10 commandments. Honor your father and your mother. Jesus came along and said, I've got commandments that even supersede that. When my phone rings, Judy says, aren't you going to answer that? And I say, no, it's from an unknown caller. Well, it could be important. I said, yeah, it could be. If it is, they'll leave a message and then I'll call them back. Remember the days when telemarketers did not have your cell phone number? Wasn't that nice? Well, those days are gone now. So what am I going to do if one of those calls is from Jesus and I don't answer it because it says unknown caller, and on the other end he says, I'm not leaving him a message. He didn't bother taking my call. I'm moving on to the next one. What a missed opportunity that would be. Peter, Andrew, James, and John started out on an ordinary day. They did not know as fishermen they were going to be captured in a net that day. The net they got entangled in that day became the whole meaning of their life. Everything from that time on was changed because they had met their master. They had met somebody who's more powerful than the voice in the nav system. They met somebody who was going to give their life direction when they had no direction for their lives themselves. Things didn't go all that well for them. Peter was crucified upside down. That's not exactly a cherry on top of the cake. But did they regret their decision? Perhaps they wavered at times. But ultimately, answering that call was the most significant thing they ever did in their lives. And nothing was the same after that. I got a call one day. I was out on the Rockland Breakwater Lighthouse in the middle of a raging storm, trying to make up my mind about whether or not I was going to be a Christian or not. And I couldn't make up my mind. I couldn't sort it all out. I couldn't weigh all the positives and negatives, including my mother's attitude toward it. And I didn't know what to do. And I called out and I said, I can't stand this any longer. If you're out there, do something. Don't try this at home. Not a good idea. Anyhow, I came home and I said to Judy, I think I'm going to be a priest. And she said, oh, shit. I said, what do you mean? She said, I saw this coming. I saw this coming long before you saw it coming, Paul. I was hoping it was going to wait a little while until our kids were a little older. And I started the ordination process here in the Diocese of Maine. Eventually, I moved my family from Union, Maine, population 800, to Manhattan, population 8 million, overnight. And then after that, we were going to come back to Maine. Anybody here remember Bishop Wolf? Whoa, the choir does. Okay. Anyhow, Bishop Wolf got in touch with me my senior year in seminary and said, you know that call you had, Paul? I said, yeah. He said, it's not going to happen in Maine. I said, what do you mean? He said, there are no jobs in Maine for you. Therefore, I release you. When a diocese sends somebody off to seminary, the understanding is the first year or two of your ordained life is the prerogative of the sponsoring diocese. So what he did was he released me. Released me. He basically said, good luck. And I wound up serving a parish in North Carolina, then I served a parish in New Jersey, then I served a parish in Louisiana, then I served a parish in Maryland, then I retired from full-time ministry and finally got back to Maine 33 years after I left. What a call. What a call. That's not the plan I had for my life. Anyhow, the point is, next time your cell phone rings and it says unknown caller, next time your nav system says in 300 feet, turn right, think for a moment about whether or not you are open at that moment to receiving a call with a great deal more significance. Sometimes the call comes unbidden, unwelcomed, like Peter and Andrew and James and John. Sometimes the call comes because people go out looking for it, like all of you who went to the effort of coming to this church today. You're looking for something. I'm telling you, maybe there's a call right here, right now, on your life. When the Master's voice is finally heard, don't get out a map and argue with the nav system. Just say yes. Just say yes. The result might be a life that is somewhat shortened biologically, but will be infinitely greater in significance. Amen.